Hello everybody. We'll just wait a couple minutes for everyone to log on. I hope you had an amazing long weekend and you got to celebrate it with your friends and your family. I've just had a light go out in my kitchen, so we're makeshifting with the lamp. So hopefully the light stays good for this time, but we're just, Queen's birthday weekend has been a little bit crazy and we're just trying to make do with what we've got. So we'll see who pops on. I'll turn my phone onto silent so we don't get the notifications. We'll wait one more minute and then we'll get going. We'll put the apron on. I never used to be an apron cooker, like a cooker with an apron, and now I love it. It definitely is way better than going through constant handy towels or tea towels, so it's definitely a good way to do it. I'm just gonna tie it up. How was everyone's long weekend? What did you get up to? Did you get to see your family? Did you just have the weekend off work? Did you work? What did you do? We had friends come and visit from Dunedin. We went over to Queenstown. It was a friend's birthday and we watched him bungee jump and get dipped in the river, and then we sent them away on jet boats, so that was really fun. But yeah, and then just kind of chilled and got back on top of things. Cool, let's get started. I thought there'd be less people today because of it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drain and rinse our chickpeas. Today I didn't cook chickpeas, I just have the Kira's organic chickpeas. I like to use organic when I can, just because then you know that there's no nasties within the food. So let's get our sieve, head over to the sink and wash them out. So remember to give them a really good rinse through, and then what we're going to do is we're going to really finely slice our shiitake mushrooms. If you don't have your shiitake mushrooms, it's totally okay. You can use normal mushrooms. Shiitake mushrooms just have a different texture, and they work really well as a binding ingredient into the dumplings, and they also absorb a lot of flavour. So we need 5 of those. We'll chop them up. And we need our onion. I've just realised I should adjust this so that you guys can actually see me chopping. We need our onion, our cabbage, which I've got over here, and garlic. So I'm firstly going to start with my onion. Turn my front pan on. A little bit of olive oil. Now in the end, everything's going to go into the food processor anyway, so just like that golden rule, you don't have to worry too much about, well, that was really low, you don't have to worry too much about how it's cut or what it looks like. You just kind of want it roughly diced. So remove that skin from the onion. Cool, got the skin off. Sticky onion today. And I'm just going to cut it in half and then really roughly dice it. And I'm going to put that straight into the pan and let that start to saute. Then the next thing we're going to do is our mushrooms. Once again, that's all going to end up in the food processor, so don't worry too much about what it looks like. You kind of want to make sure that they are diced the same size, mainly for cooking purposes, to make sure that everything is cooked through. But once again, if you're getting into the kitchen and you're still learning, it's not something to be massively stressed about, because once we put the filling into the dumpling papers, then it still cooks through again. So it's totally okay, do not stress. And that's the beauty of vegetables as well, is that undercooked or overcooked, they might cause you a little bit of gas problems, but overall you're going to be okay. Cool, let's do the garlic. So 2 cloves of garlic. We've just brought garlic from the store again when we were using Jake's father's garlic from his garden, and the difference in quality is insane. Garlic is kind of hard to grow because, well, it's not hard to grow, but it needs its own space. So it really dislikes being paired with other vegetables. And so normally if you plant it with other seedlings, then it won't actually end up sprouting. And people kind of get just concerned about that, and then they just don't end up growing garlic at all. Whereas if you plant it in its own little separate bed, you will get beautiful, beautiful garlic. And then obviously you have to plant it at special times. Like, I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but you plant it on the longest day or the shortest day, and you plant it on the longest day, something like that. Chickpea, do you know? Something along those lines. So quickly here, we're just really cutting up the garlic fine. I'm just going to get a different knife. And slowly dice it up. I'm not actually sure who's with us tonight or who's cooking along. It hasn't told me. But I see there's 3 of you, so shout out if you're here, and if you have any questions or there's anything that you want to know. I'm just mincing the garlic here, so what you're doing is that you're having the knife on like a tiny angle, and then you're just pressing with your forefinger and then your other palm, so my left hand, and you're just scraping the garlic along, and you'll end up going from garlic that's this size, so like lots of little pieces, to having minced garlic. You don't have to do this, it's just something that I like to do, and you get the flavours of the garlic more spread out. But once again, if you're still learning, this is something new that's in the kitchen to you, just dicing it up will be more than enough. And even again, if this is something that's a little overwhelming to you, then you can always just buy the already crushed garlic in your plant on shortest day. There you go, Chickpea. Okay, so everyone, you need to plant your garlic on your shortest day, and then you pick it when it flowers. I think that's what you do. I haven't grown garlic yet. It's not something that's gone into the garden. Cool. So we've got our onion, garlic and mushroom into the pan. Then we're going to add our cabbage. So I've got a little bit of red cabbage here today and white cabbage. So I'm actually going to use a half a cup of both, just to change up the colours and change up the flavours. Once again, it's going into your food processor. It's nice to have it as small as you can, but you don't have to. It can be bigger. Just if it's smaller, it gets softer faster. Cool, so that's about half a cup. I'll get my cup measure out just to be sure. Cool. So half a cup. Chuck that in there. And then I'm going to get my green cabbage or white cabbage, whatever you like to call it. Take off the exterior leaves. And then take off the exterior leaves until you don't have any dirty bits anymore. So you normally have to take 3 or 4 out. And then what I'm going to do, because this is a big cabbage and I don't want to actually cut straight into it, I'm just going to peel off maybe 3 leaves, and then I'm just going to dice them up separately by themselves. Hello, yum, I'm hungry, thanks for listening. Hannah, are you cooking? Or I can come and drop some around to you afterwards because we're going to have lots of leftovers. Thanks for tuning in. Cook in sesame oil. So you can use either sesame oil or normal oil, Jatika. We're going to be putting sesame oil into our dipping sauce, and also our when we actually cook the dumplings in the pan, we're going to be using sesame oil. So you're more than welcome to use regular oil for this one. As sesame oil, it does have quite a high burning point, so you don't want to, a low burning point, so you don't want to use it too much for sauteing. So I'm just roughly chopping this up. And you can always chop down the middle as well to get it a little bit shorter. Once again, it's going in the food processor. You don't have to worry about it too much. Add that in there. You'll notice that I'm waiting to add the spinach until last, and that's mainly just because spinach has such a high water content that it wilts the quickest. So you want to make sure that the other vegetables get softer, and then you're going to be adding this in. So the last thing we add is our cumin, or just half a teaspoon. So one of these. Now cumin is not typically a Japanese flavour, but I do love the little bit of spice and smoke that, now watching from work, I can come drop some off if you want, Hannah. But I do love the little bit of spice that it adds, and it's just a change in the heat. Awesome. So let that smoke off. I hope you guys can see. The lighting situation isn't great. So once we have that in the in here, we're going to add our 3 handfuls of spinach. So you can be as generous as you like. These dumplings are an amazing way to sneak veggies into your kids as well, or instead of sneaking veggies into your kids, just like introducing new vegetables and new flavors, and just being able to say, hey look, this is what's in this, and then they're like, oh, maybe I do like that, but they don't understand that when it's something new and intimidating. So once again, give that a little stir fry. Now get your food processor, or if you're using your NutriBullet, we'll do this in batches just like every other time. So as you can tell, plant-based cooking, I mean, especially with myself, I use my food processor every single day. So it's definitely, like, if people have been messaging me and asking, oh, should we invest in one? Is it worth it? If you are looking at going more plant-based and looking at preparing more food on your own rather than buying, say, store-bought dumplings or store-bought veggie patties, then it's 100% worth it buying this. Mine's just a Breville one, a Sunbeam one. My mum got it for me for my birthday. Thanks, Mum. I think I got it on Briscoe sale. I think it was like $250. So you can go cheaper, you can go more expensive. I know Jake's mum has a Breville. It was maybe $450, but it comes with all the bells and whistles. You have shredding, you have coleslaw, you can put anything in there. It has a double blade on it rather than a single blade. So there are lots of options. Do a little bit of market research. If you want, feel free to message me. Totally happy to answer some questions. But if you're just starting within this, then maybe just start small and go to the recycling centre, and maybe there's one there for you. But it is definitely a useful, if you're wondering if it's worth the kitchen space, it's worth it. Cool, so nice. These veggies are coming along nicely. We don't want them to be completely wilted. We want them to still have some shape and texture to them, but we do just want to kind of break down the harsh barrier of, say, the cabbage and the just the cabbage really, and then the mushroom and the onion. We just want to soften them a little bit so they become binding agents rather than harsh, and then once they're softened, they also absorb a little bit more liquid, so they'll be able to absorb the tamari and things that are in it later. So into the food processor, let's put our chickpeas, and we're going to pulse them to a crumb. So feel free to turn me down now because I'm about to turn the food processor on and it is noisy. So as you can see here, it's nice little crumb now. We're going to add in our sauteed vegetables, so turn off the heat. And always do this. Also, if you wanted to, you're more than welcome, because this is quite a lot of veggies to put into the dumplings. So if you wanted to bulk them out a little bit more and say do a meal prepping day when you're going to be making a lot of dumplings, then you're more than welcome, or you can, sorry, add in another can of chickpeas, and that just bulks out the ingredients even further, so you're able to make more patties, and then they freeze really, really well. So quickly, we're just going to put that into the food processor, and we're going to create kind of like a minced meat paste. Because you had your chickpeas in there first, you'll see that like this sauteed vegetables are on the top and all the chickpeas are on the outside. So you're going to have to get in there and scrape down the edges, and try if you can to lift. See how I've can you see? Oh, lifted it off the ground, and that's just going to get all the really soft chickpeas that are stuck on the ground to be able to mix into the paste. Cool. So let's go again. And I'm just going to turn it on again. Amazing. So this is perfect. So as you can see, I wonder if you can see this. So in the bottom here, you can see how we have quite a fine, like it is like a paste down here, whereas at the top we still have quite crumbs. So that's going to be awesome, because that's when that's going to mix together, you're going to have enough wetness to bind everything. But then when you actually eat the dumpling later, there's going to be a really good crunch in there from the chickpea that's still pulsed up. So let's put this into the sink. Oh, hold on. Now we have to fold in. We have to fold in the tamari and the sesame oil. You're also more than welcome to add this in before the food processor. So we need 1 tablespoon of tamari. So once again, I only have a half, so I'm just going to add 2 of these. And then you're going to have 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. Oh, this is new. Should have known that. So if you, well, yeah, prime example right there. If you buy the pan sesame oil, the lid is like, there's no pouring spout. So I often with this end up pouring heaps into the pan. So just be careful with that and make sure that you've got quite a soft touch. Yum, I love the smell of sesame oil. How is everyone smelling? How is everyone's looking? Have they got the right consistency? Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, so look at that. Yum! So you have a bit of a crunch, but you have quite a good paste to get everything moving in there. Amazing. Let's get a dumpling station going. So for your dumpling station, what you're going to need is, I'm going to use this chopping board. You're going to need a tray, an oven tray. So let's got this here. And you're going to need a little cup of water. So I just use something like a little ramekin, and I just fill it with cold water. It's kind of like when you make sushi and your dumpling papers are going to, you wet your dumpling papers with that to make canoes. So these are my dumpling papers. I won't use all of these tonight, but I will make more mixture and prepare them. So that means that you get, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember exactly, but I think it's 100 dumplings. And so then what I would do is that I freeze them, and then they just go into, I put them into Snaplock bags, and then I have dumplings for weeks, and it's the best because when you just have a little craving for something, or you, let's just make sure I can see this, or you don't know what to eat for dinner, but you don't want to just have like a quick grab and go meal, this makes it feel like you're eating something that's like taking you time and effort, but really you've just got them out of the freezer and put them straight into the pan and you have dinner in 10 minutes. So the recipe says to lay out 5 dumpling wrappers at a time, but I have space for 8, so I'm gonna do that. How many people are everybody cooking for tonight? Are we cooking for 4? Are we cooking for, so the recipe serves 4, but like for example, I'm only cooking for 3 tonight. How many people are you cooking for? What we're doing is now we're gonna get just a teaspoon. Too much mixture really doesn't work. Trust me, I've tried it. I've got impatient when it comes to the end of rolling the dumplings, and I've added too much mixture and then they just explode. So trust me, teaspoon. What we're gonna do, can you see what I'm doing here? I need a, yeah. So we're just placing them in the middle, and even like some of these, a teaspoon is gonna be too much. Like you can see, you really just want it to sit in the middle of the dumpling paper. And the reason why we lay out lots of wrappers at once is basically just to, so it's like a production line. You start, you do one job heaps of times, and then you do the next job heaps of times, and it lets it go so much faster rather than having to just do one. So now that I'm just going to quickly wash my hands. So now that I've got all the filling filled out, I've got a lot of filling, so I probably won't get through all my filling tonight, but I'll do that after, just for the purpose of cooking and eating dinner. So now what I do is I get, where are you going to be able to see this? So now I get my water, and I just water around all the edges, just with my finger, just doing a quick circle. If your pan is quite often going to be stuck, like things get stuck to your pan, then I would recommend putting down baking paper, but we have non-stick pans, so we're going to be okay. Your dumplings don't get cooked on your oven tray, but this is how you would store them in the freezer so that they don't get stuck together. Okay, so now that I've done that, we're going to the next step. So this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky, but pick it up and make it like a taco. And then what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze together the tops. And so then you have a little, like, I don't even know what to call that. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to squeeze, and it's okay if stuff squeezes at the top, it's all right. You just put that straight back into the dumpling. And then you have one to go around. This isn't the best one because it's the first wrapper, which is quite tough. And then you have a dumpling. You place it on the tray here. Next one. So get it, put it in half. I should bring back the comments. How is everybody doing? Okay. So you can see here how folding it over each other, you get these little divs. That's how you get them to look, I guess, Japanesey. It's just folding over with your finger. So and you'll kind of get to see that there is a little bit much sometimes, and this is where it does get messy, and this is where things can go wrong and people get impatient, and that's totally okay. I've definitely been there, done that, but it is so worth it, and you get quite quick at it. So because I normally think that 5 dumplings serves people, because I'm going to be serving 3 people tonight, so but a lot of people might be serving 4 or 5. Well, no, probably just 4. We're going to cook we'll wrap up 25 dumplings together, and then the rest of the mixture we'll do after, just for the purpose of tonight and cooking times. And if your dumplings aren't sticking together that well, then you just definitely need a little bit more water. Don't be afraid to put water onto there because it doesn't go soggy. So as you can see, sometimes they're really messy, sometimes they're really fun, and that's totally okay. Once you cook them, all of the like little outside bits definitely disappear, and you don't even tell that they were there. So and if you have continuously lots of things coming out like me, that's okay. Next time what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use less mixture. So just take some off. And we served these last night to our friends for a bit of a midnight snack, and they were shocked that they were vegan. They didn't believe it. They definitely thought that it was some sort of minced meat that they had tried. So this is something that's super awesome that you can bring to any sort of meal, no matter the eaters that are there. And they are always a hit. So can you see that? Nice little fold over. Cool. So just like that, your first, we should have timed that. I wonder how long that took. Your first dumplings are done. And then you start the station all over again. So fold them open. So that was 8. So we're going to need to do 3 stations. Cool. How is everybody doing? Does anyone have any questions? I know this part is quite frustrating, I guess. And it's definitely the part that takes quite a lot of practice. And it's definitely the thing that, like, for example, friends, I would be making them and lots of friends would come around and we would kind of end up just sitting there doing a train all together. And then all of a sudden you had like 200, 300 dumplings there ready for your freezer, and like each friend takes home 100 dumplings. You know, so it's definitely something that's fun to come and do. Get your friends involved together to be able to do it. Cool. So quickly, just with your fingers, watch around. Some people message me about wonton papers, and wonton papers definitely work with this mixture. The only thing with wonton papers is that they're square, so you put a lot more mixture in, and the folding techniques are very different. And if you did want to learn that, there's amazing options on YouTube. That's how I learned to do all my like funny little foldings. YouTube is the king of learning, really. Who needs to go to university when you can just watch YouTube? Cool. So back into the dumplings. I'm not sure. I think these dumpling papers might have been a little bit old. They're very hard. I did buy them today though, but it's okay. There was questions about gluten-free as well, in terms of can you make these gluten-free? And if you did want to make them gluten-free, then you definitely have to make your own wrappers. There are some awesome recipes out there for gluten-free ones that have brown rice flour recipes. So you see here, like, that's just way too much recipe. That's way too much mixture. So I'm just going to take away pretty much half of that. Fold it over. Start again. Cool. So what I'll do later is I'll make a video and I'll show you how I freeze them and then store them once frozen, so that it's separate to this video if people are interested. And these are something that's really cool to get the kids involved in the kitchen, because honestly, yes, one, will get messy, and two, if you're like me, then you want them to look perfect and like be put together well. But that's definitely something that the kids can just do, and they could just fold it over like a half circle, and they then get to experience playing with food, playing with different ingredients. Cool, this is the final round that we'll do for the dumplings. And it's funny because like I actually find this quite therapeutic, just sitting here going through the stations. That's way too much. And making them, and I find that once I'm eating them, I actually appreciate them so much more, because I'm able to understand the technique and the time and perseverance that it takes to make them. So fold them together. Meg, what's the time?
It's 4 minutes past 6.
Okay, cool. So once again, put too much on, so we just fold that over. And also, the more that you practice, like even just on the same day, the easier that it's going to get, and you're going to start kind of getting your rhythm, and you get faster and faster. So I actually think it's better to make these in like bulk 100s than it is to like just make enough for one dinner, because you already made the effort, you're already cooking the mixture up. It only takes an extra couple of minutes to be able to cut the extra food. The only difference is the wrapping time. But like I said before, if you get all your friends involved and you make enough for everyone, then everyone's going to want to be there. Cool, this is the final one. Cool, so now you have your dumplings. We're just going to put them to the side. I'm just going to try and see if you can keep them all standing up, which they should be able to do. I'm going to quickly wash my hands. Awesome. So here's my pot that I'm going to be using for my stock, for my miso broth. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the right rear round on, and once again I'm going to use my red and my green cabbage and this is just me making noodles. So traditionally you would be being served these dumplings with a ramen or a miso broth. However, because we already have the dumpling pastries, and we already kind of have quite a lot of carbs involved. So just as a healthier version, we're going to be making these with cabbage noodles. Now you're more than welcome to make the noodles as wide or as thin as you like. I'm going to do a bit of a mixture. So we're going to put a tiny bit of chili oil in the pot. And we're just going to add them in there. And just saute them off just a touch before we add in our broth. So I'm going to cut my cabbage in half because I just find it's easier to deal with once it's in half. And a trick, if you want to be buying cabbage and you want to buy like the best cabbage, the trick is you want a really heavy cabbage. If you lift up the cabbage and it feels really light, it means that there's lots of air in between all of the wrinkles and the layers, and you're not going to have a good cabbage. And also it makes it really difficult to cut if you don't have a good cabbage. So try and see if you can pick the heavy cabbage, and that's how you can see what's on the inside, or feel, sorry, what's on the inside. So I did my red cabbage quite thick, so I'm going to do my white cabbage quite thin. Once again, I'm only cooking for 3 of us, and the soup doesn't keep that well, so I'm only going to cook enough. I'm not going to prepare extra like I normally would. Cool. So that's enough here. And we're just going to place it in the pot. Then we're going to add our 2.5 cups of water. So I'm just going to fill up the jug. And I'm just going to pour that in there. If you're doing less, I like to think about it as like 3/4 of a cup to 1 cup per person. And then I'm going to put the lid onto that pot just so it comes to a boil faster. Then I'm going to give this pan just a really quick rinse because we're going to cook our dumplings in here. Amazing. Give it a really quick dry. And we're going to put that on the front pan. On the front element, sorry. Well, I'm going to. You could put on whatever element you like. I'm going to turn that front element on. And this is where we're going to use our sesame oil. Oh, in the recipe, I also said you could use silver beet or kale for your noodles. You can totally do that. We're just going to have cabbage without noodles. It just kind of depends on what you enjoy. We really like cabbage for the noodles. Silver beet is good, but it doesn't maintain its shape as well. And then kale is just if that's what you have on hand. The reason why we put that into the recipe is mainly just to be able to show you the diversity of the recipe and how you can change it as you like. So quickly, we're just going to add just a touch of, once again, just a touch of the sesame oil. Make sure that you don't just like rapidly pour it because of the lid. Could be a little bit funny. Cool. And while that's heating up, we're going to combine our ingredients for the dipping sauce. So I've got just a bowl here. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of tamari. Just going to get the next tamari. Because this one is running out. I don't know why I poured that into there. That was a mistake. So I'm just going to do a little bit less than 1/4 cup. Go. 1/4 cup of that. 2 tablespoons of your sesame oil. So I'm going to do 4 of these because I've only got a 1/2 tablespoon. One tablespoon of mixed garlic. So this is where, of minced garlic, sorry I should say not mixed, minced. So this is where your mincing technique comes in really, really well. Or once again, you just use your, minced garlic from the pot. So I'm just going to use 2 cloves of garlic. And whoop, we're just gonna really finely dice it up. My sesame oil sounds like it smells like it's starting to heat up, so we'll get the dumplings onto there quickly. That's minced enough, add that into there. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, which are here. I'm just going to sprinkle them in. If you like chili flakes, add more. If you don't like them, add less. And then your sesame oil, your sesame seeds, which are here. Sprinkle that. Get your chopsticks and give it a good stir up. And set it to the side. Cool. Sesame oil is hot. Now, the dumpling placement is really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the dumplings so that they are beside each other in a circle around the pan, but they're not touching, because as the dumpling wrappers expand as they cook, you'll see it as when we get to that stage. And if they are touching already, then they're going to be really, really stuck together. Whereas when we place them like this, that's not so bad. If any of your dumplings have started to open up a little bit, then just give them a quick squeeze to squeeze them back together. This is the way that Jake and I love to cook our dumplings, and how they're served just most commonly in Japan. However, if you have a bamboo steamer, then you're more than welcome to use the bamboo steamer as well, just over a pot of water. It's entirely up to you. Cool. So as you can see here, can you see? That's how we place them. I can't really turn the pan much more because they'll fall. I'm going to slide an extra couple in there just to put them in. Amazing. Woo! Oh. You'll hear them start to sizzle. That's great, that's what we want. Once they start sizzling, we'll put in some water and we'll put a lid on top. I don't actually have a lid for this pan, so I just use a plate upside down. So as we go here, we'll show you. Yum, I love this dumpling sauce. It's definitely the best. If you're watching your oil consumption, then you can always put less oil in there. It's totally up to you. So we'll quickly let these sizzle away. And we'll place the water in. So you want to place enough water in so that they're not floating or anything, but it's up to like where the dumpling edges are. So place it on there and then place your lid or your thing. If you're using a plate like me, just slide it in and it will just slot into place, and then you just need to use tongs to get it out. Make sure they're metal tongs, not plastic. Cool, everything is cooking. So while everything is cooking, I'm actually just going to fold some more dumpling wrappers because we have time. Just going to... And these are the ones that will go into the freezer for later. So... From the mixture, you should get about 80 to 100 dumplings. The reason why that we're not putting the miso soup into the soup yet is because it's fermented, and if you put it into the stock while it's still boiling, then you will not be able to then all the enzymes within the miso is going to die, and that's why it's fermented. You want to be able to get all the probiotics and prebiotics from it. So kombucha is a probiotic, which is awesome for your gut health. No, kombucha. I'm sorry, miso, which is awesome for your gut health and introducing new microorganisms that are able to break down food that are that sometimes you might not be able to. That's why a lot of people who move or transition to a plant-based diet, they really struggle with their gut for the first couple weeks, and that's mainly because they don't have the microorganisms to deal with that much fiber and that many different plant diversities. Mainly from the legumes is what everybody struggles with. And so, and if you struggle with this also, a way that you can tackle that or combat that in a way that is like achievable and not really uncomfortable is by just slowly introducing them. If you introduce them, if you go cold turkey, you are going to have gut discomfort, and it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely not pleasant, and it doesn't make you want to continue on your journey. Whereas if you slowly introduce them to your gut, then they're going to be able to get used to them. It's kind of like a job. If you had a job that all of a sudden changed and you had to go rapid fire into these new things, it's going to be like, whoa, what's going on? Whereas if you have a job and every day you are given a new task or something like that you have to add into your to-do list, it slowly feels manageable and not like you're constantly being pulled in every direction. So that is definitely something that you want to think about. For me, for example, I've been plant-based for the last like 3 years, but that was definitely very slowly transitioning out of meat. So for example, I've only been fully vegan for just over a year now. So it's not a quick, easy thing to do. Like, you definitely want to make it enjoyable. You want to learn along the way. People who get really stressed out about something, they're not going to enjoy it. It's not going to be fun for them. They're not going to want to continue and track towards their goal. Whereas if we make it fun and we create little steps in between each thing, then it becomes achievable and it feels like you're making progress rather than constantly being stressed out or frustrated. So that's my little piece of advice. If you're wanting to transition to a plant-based diet, but you're not quite sure where, how, why to start, and if you do feel discomfort, like many do, you're not alone, when you introduce new legumes into your diet, then slowly start to introduce them into your week. Start by creating one meal with chickpeas. Do another meal with beans. But maybe just do that twice a week. And then once you start to feel comfortable with that, you'll feel like your gut can process it well. Then start introducing another bean and introduce another, or introduce it into 4 meals a week rather than 2 meals a week. There are so many options out there. You don't have to be these people that go cold turkey. Cool. So the dumplings, I can see, this is the only problem with doing, oh, I missed one. This is the only problem with doing it with a plate, is that you can't actually see your dumplings. But steam is good. That means that the water that we placed in the pan is evaporating. And we're able to cook. That's what's cooking the dumpling wrappers and the inside filling. So that is good. You definitely want it to be steaming away. And our cabbage noodles are starting to boil away. This is great. We're getting progress. I'm going to do another 8 and then I'll check on the dumplings. Does anyone have any questions? Now that we're into this part of the meal, which is just letting everything cook. This is my favorite part. This is when you can either do a little bit of a clean up. You can put your lunch together for the next day. Or sometimes I like just to listen to music and chill out. You're also here, if you have a plate on as well and you're like stressing out about your dumplings getting burnt or cooking or overcooking, then you should be able to listen in and you will be able to hear sizzling. If you hear sizzling, that means your water has evaporated. Until you hear sizzling, there's still water in there. And if you're sitting here now just watching me, letting your food cook, and you've got mixture left over and you're not making dumplings, I assure you that you're not going to want to do this after you've had your meal. So try and follow along and do this now so that you have dumplings in the freezer ready to go whenever you need them. See what I mean? I start getting impatient and then I put in lots of filling and it just explodes everywhere. So I'm just going to take out a few of those. Cool, so here we go, fold them over, little taco. If you still want to have a little bit of a crunch in your noodle, then make sure you don't boil it to blithering. And you just take the lid off and turn the heat down. If you want to as well, we have tested these dumplings in a deep fryer. They work really, really well, even with this this dumpling wrapper, not the wonton wrapper. So you can definitely do that as well. The only thing is, if you're going to be putting them into the deep fryer, make sure that all of your edges are really closed off. Because if you have an explosion into the deep fryer, it's not going to be good. And you're going to have to change the oil. And it's going to be really frustrating. So we want cooking to be enjoyable. So that's my little tip. Make sure you close off all the dumpling edges. You don't have to be as methodical when we're putting them in the pan as we are, or even when you're steaming them, you don't have to be as methodical, but definitely if you're deep frying or boiling. You can also boil these dumplings. However, once again, you have to really make sure that you close off all the lids. It's not so bad if you have a dumpling explode into a pot of boiling water, because then you just have like filling floating around your water, and that's okay. But you can just pour the water out. But when it's your oil, it's a bit of a nightmare. Cool. Right. So I can hear sizzling starting to happen from this pan, so I'm just going to quickly wash my hands. Get my tongs and get a tea towel. I'm going to put the tea towel in one. Get my tongs really under there. Yes, perfect. Make sure, because your plate is really hot, don't put it on your bench, and make sure you put it under a tea towel. So now, as you can see, whoop, there is a tiny touch of water left in there, but that's okay. That's what's going to make that sheen that you see on top of the dumplings. And we're just going to let these sizzle away. We're going to take our soup off the hot, and we're going to sieve in. So get your sieve, give it a rinse, and we're going to sieve in our miso paste. So you need a 1/4 cup of miso paste, which is essentially what I have left in here. So I'm just going to put this all in. You can see that the reason why we do this with the miso paste is that so you don't end up with just a lump. So obviously the miso paste does dissolve within the soup, but it doesn't dissolve that well. So just by putting it through the sieve, you're going to have really quick, rapid flavour absorption rather than clumps of miso soup. And once again, with the miso soup, if you really like miso soup, then 100% use more miso soup paste. If you don't, then use less. It's entirely up to you, and it's something that you can experiment with as well. So the reason why I'm doing this is just to get the last of that miso soup out. Miso paste, I should say, sorry. Yum, this is going to be so good. Okay. So now that I've got the miso paste in there, I'm going to get a spoon. And the sieve doesn't have to be touching the water, that's okay. And we're just going to really sieve it through. It is easier if you have it in the water, but it's not a big deal. And just mix it through. Kind of like if you're baking and you needed yum, I love that smell. Cool. And then once it's all sieved through there, you will have remnants left in here, and I just tap upside down. Give it a little stir with your soup ladle. Yum. Miso soup is miso paste is also quite salty, so I don't add any salt to this broth either. But you're also more than welcome to once again. I totally don't mind. Cool. Get your bowls out for serving. I'm going to be using... I'll use this one. So, have a bowl. Going to get some noodles. Place that in the bottom. This is where you can serve your noodles differently. Some people like more, some people like less. But this is your base of what your dumplings are going to sit on as well. So then you get your soup and you put your soup on top. So my soup is quite purple because I have the miso paste, the purple cabbage in there. Now, to get your dumplings off, there's a couple things you can do. So, I'm going to put a plate here. And you can see you see this film? That's what that last of that water did. And so now what you want to do is you want to just really not quickly, I keep saying that, but just get under them. And you don't have to like move them all, but just under a few of them. I'm just going to do this here, it's easier. And this is where you want a spatula like this so you can really dig down the sides of the pan. This pan's getting a little bit old now. And just get them all free. And then you can either get 4 of them and place them on top of your soup like that. Yum! Or that one lost its bottom. You can place them on a plate. In a circle. Normally they would come out all together, but because I've already taken 4 out, and so see how these 3 are stuck together? So that's where like the perfect line is. And then you can serve it as a circle if you pretended the other 4 dumplings were there. Put your dipping sauce in the middle, and that's how I would serve it at a party. Yum! Your next option, for final touches, is to get your spring onion. This isn't in the menu, but because you've followed along this long, you get the secret touch. Spring onion, you want to take off the outside edge, just like a normal onion. The fastest way is just to put your knife down it. Quick, just dice up. And ta-da! Thank you so much for joining in on, especially on Queen's birthday weekend when it was a long weekend. This is definitely a recipe that kind of looks overwhelming to start with, but it's definitely doable and achievable, and it's great to have for on-hand meals. Next week we're going to be cooking, what are we cooking? A freekeh salad, oh man, I've forgotten. It's definitely planned, but it's a freekeh with a kale salad and, oh, sorry, now I know. Roasted eggplant, roasted miso eggplant with kale salad and freekeh. So that's going to be delicious. Miso is coming back into, eggplant is coming back into season. So we're definitely getting excited for that because eggplant is such a versatile vegetable that you can do so many flavors with. If you have any questions or there's anything you want to know, then definitely feel free to shout out. And I really hope you have a good week, and we'll see you for next week's Meatless Monday.